upon the silence. Think what a wonderful world it would be if more of us practice that guiding principle. And then I've added to that one of my favorite guiding principles for knowing, is this a message that can improve upon the silence? And here again, I return to Sufi wisdom, which Sufi wisdom is coming out of the Islamic tradition. It's the mystics within the Islamic tradition are referred to as the Sufis. And they offer us this wisdom of thinking about 3 gateways. So when we're discerning whether or not to offer a message, and these are particularly helpful in difficult conversations, but I find them helpful in any conversation, but particularly in those that are challenging, is they say there are 3 gates, and you only go through one gate at a time, and each gate is contingent on the previous one. So if you don't clear the first gate, Grant, you're remembering this, aren't you? If you don't clear the first gate, you don't go through the second. And if you don't clear the second, you don't go to the third. Ready? You can't wait for these, can you? Well, I'm telling you, you're going to be talking about the gates this weekend. This is usually a takeaway for folks. So here are the 3 gates. The first gate is, I'm only going to speak something if I believe it to be true. Is it true? Now you're going to tell me, Diane, this truth can be relative. We all have our own truth. What you think is true may not be true for me. And I'm going to say, I realize that. I feel your pain. That's why we have 2 other gates, though. Okay? But how do we discern if something is true for us? Well, it requires some reflection. It requires some reflection. And here I defer to the wisdom of the authors of Difficult Conversations. They give us 3 guidelines for really discerning what's true for me. And they talk about, what's happening here? What's the heart of the matter for me? Spending some time thinking about what is happening, what has happened, what do I hope will happen? What are my feelings about what is happening? And then thirdly, how does this affect my identity? What's in this for me? How does this affect my identity? Why is this a matter important to me? And if we had more time today, we could think about what's true for us, and then we could imagine somebody in our lives that we're experiencing some difficulty, and then we could ask those questions and imagine their responses. It's a great exercise in developing our capacity to take on a third-person perspective of the situation. All right? So when we think about what's true, we think about, okay, what's happening here? What's this about? What's the heart of the matter? How do I feel about it? And why is this important to me at this time? That helps us to get at our truth. All right, we've got some clarity on what's true in the situation, and we're thinking we want to speak that truth. Well, then we got to go through the second gate, though, first, before we broach it with another person. And the second gate is, this may be true for me. I may have spent the whole last week trying to discern what's true for me. However, I don't share it unless I believe, unless I feel drawn that it's necessary to share it. So the first gate, is it true? The second gate, is it necessary? And here, how do we discern if it's necessary? Sometimes it's really helpful to have another person that we can discern with. Does this seem necessary that I share this truth with this person? Not to triangle in that other person, but just to ask for a neutral party to kind of think it through. Probably the best neutral party is to bring it to prayer and to think, is it necessary for me to share this at this time? And I often use the principle of, well, if it seems that it's necessary, an occasion will present itself for me to bring this up. And then thirdly, if we do believe that it's necessary, and I'm moving through these gates quickly, it rarely moves this quickly in our lives, right? But if we've gotten a sense of what our truth is that we want to share, we believe it's necessary to share, then the third gate, and this is often the one that I mess up on, Is it kind? We share our truth in a way that is kind. And what we often forget, and what we need to remember, and we certainly need to remind one another now that we have all of these mediums and devices for relaying messages that aren't kind, that are both, we can sure share kind messages, but we have a whole lot more options for sharing unkind messages as well, is the destruction that an unkind message does, not only to the recipient, but to our own consciousness. Sometimes we lose sight of that. We think it's just going to hurt the other. It has a huge impact, probably an even more large impact on our own consciousness. So the kindness part here is really, really important. And I think this turning to the heart again, returning to the heart and speaking from that place helps us to shape our message in a way that is kind. As I think about the three gates, I often take great comfort in the passages echoed in Scripture, and I will give you the words to say, right? We're always assured we'll be given the words that we need. Is it true? Is it necessary? Is it kind? And if we go through all of those gates, then we feel confident that whatever we speak will improve upon the silence. Okay, how do those gates hit you? Yes?
I was just wondering if you're talking about positive or negative information that you're going to share.
Yeah, I'm not a Pollyanna. We've got to share, sometimes we've got to share negative information. Right,
I
absolutely.
just wasn't clear on that.
Yeah, thank you. That's a really important clarifying. Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, that's one of the things that I try to explore more in the book is about, confrontation often gets a bad name because we think, oh, if it's negative, it's going to have these deleterious consequences. And it's like, no, how can we offer this negative in a way that leads to
That's acceptable.
yeah, and that leads to joint exploration. It increases the odds that we can explore this negative together rather than defending and distancing. Yeah, thank you, that's a really important clarification.